Hi, and welcome back to Pick Up the Pieces. I'm Stacy, and we're in the Pickup Kitchen tonight. We are going to make a pork roast tonight, and I'm really excited about this recipe. I haven't made it in a really long time, and it is delicious. We're taking approximately about a 4 to 5 pound pork roast, and we are going to season it up and roast it in the oven. This is going to be served with a cornbread stuffed apple, some baked sweet potatoes, some roasted parsnips, and that's going to be our meal tonight, and it's going to be phenomenal. So I'm going to show you how we get this pork roast going. So our pork roast is going to bake in the oven at 375 degrees, and we're going to season this up before we put it in the oven. So I've got a little olive oil here, and I'm just going to drizzle this with the olive oil, and I'm going to add some salt and pepper. Typically, I use pink salt when I cook and kosher salt when I bake, but for a roast, for roasted meat, I like the texture of the kosher salt better. Those nice big kind of crystals of the salt are really, really nice when it's just kind of like a hunk of meat. And I'm going to use some thyme. Now, this is thyme from my garden that I picked and just put in a freezer bag. And see, there's thyme at the bottom that sort of naturally fell off the sprigs. And so this is great because when you just want to use some thyme easily, I didn't have to sit there and like pick the thyme off the bunches or the stems. I just was able to grab some from the bottom of the bag, and this will basically like pick itself off the stems. Now I'm going to kind of rub this into the top of the meat, and then I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to wash my hands real quick, and then I'm going to season the other side. My hands are nice and clean, and now I'm going to add some olive oil to this other side and some salt and pepper and thyme to this side as well. If you like sage or rosemary, you could certainly throw some of that on there. This recipe did, and I'll link it in the description for you, the recipe for this. The recipe does call for a little bit of sage, but I personally don't like sage, and so I don't put it in anything that I cook. Because I really just don't like the taste of it. And so I'm putting lots of thyme on here. We do really like that. And I'll give this kind of a massage and then flip this over. And now my pork here is on a roasting rack, and we are going to cook this in the oven. And let me just get my hands clean once more. Okay, so nice clean hands once again. And this basically is going to roast in the oven. It will roast until the internal temperature is, I believe it's 160 degrees for pork. I'll double check that and let you know in a minute, but I'm pretty sure that's the cook temperature for pork. And we are going to roast this for probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. All I did here right now is just season the pork and get it ready for the oven. And as soon as my oven comes to 375, I'll put this in, and I'll set my timer for about an hour and 15 minutes or so. And then I'll check it at that point to see how we're doing as far as cook temperature. Our pork roast is now in the oven, and I did look it up, and pork has to be cooked to 145 degrees internal temperature. So we will check that in about an hour, hour and 15 minutes. 145 is the goal, and then you let it rest for about 10 or 15 minutes before you serve it, and it will continue to cook a little bit further. You just don't want dry pork. That's the thing with pork is, it's not as tasty if it's dried out. So we've just got some sweet potatoes here now that are going to go in the oven, and these will cook for about an hour in the oven. And so I'm just poking these with a paring knife. I washed them really well. They're nice and clean. And I lined my sheet here with some parchment, and I am just poking holes in my sweet potatoes. If you go to bake potatoes in your oven and you don't poke holes in the skin, your potatoes might explode on you. That happened. My husband baked some potatoes not that long ago, and I just assumed he knew that you had to poke holes in them, and well, he didn't poke the holes in, and then when we went to go take them out of the oven and open the oven, like they literally exploded, and it was a mess to clean up. So anyway, please remember, whether it's a sweet potato or a regular potato, if you are putting them in the oven to bake them or microwaving them or air frying them, remember to poke holes in the skin, otherwise you get a potato bomb. So these sweet potatoes are going to go in the oven for about an hour while our pork is cooking at 375 for about an hour or so. These can cook, and they will be nice nice and tender, and we'll show you, of course, what they look like when they're done. We'll simply put some butter and maybe salt and pepper on these, and we'll just eat them with our pork. So I'm going to put these in the oven, and then I'll show you the rest of our sides. So the main side dish that's going to go with our pork roast are some roasted apples, which are going to be stuffed with a cornbread stuffing. Now, these apples can be cooked in their own dish in the oven for about a half hour, or when you have about a half hour left in cooking the pork, you can put them in the same dish with the pork. In the interest of time, I think I said I was going to put them in with the pork, but I'm just going to put them in their own dish. That way, if they need a little more time, they can have it, and I don't have to worry about trying to either get them out or get the pork out if these aren't done all the way. So I've already cored 3 of them. I've got 1 more to core. The recipe, which I will link in the description, does call for 8 apples, but because just 4 of us will be eating dinner tonight and we're not huge on leftovers, I'm just going to make 4, so I'm basically halving this recipe. And I don't have an apple corer that just takes out the center of the apple. The one that I have will core and slice at the same time. So I'm just using a very sharp knife very carefully to core these apples, and all I'm doing is cutting a square around the core, and I'm making sure that it's coming out the bottom of the apple when I cut, and keeping my fingers out of the way, of course. And you don't want to cut all the way through the apple. And if you do, it's fine. You can still stuff it and use it. But basically, if you cut it correctly, you should be able to pull it out by the stem. So that means I just need to loosen it a little more. So now you can pull your core right out, and then I'm just checking the inside to make sure I didn't leave anything behind that would be tough to eat. So I'm just pulling out this part of the core, and then I'm just squeezing a little lemon juice on the cut portion of this apple so that it doesn't turn brown while I'm making the stuffing. And now we have 4 apples ready to go. So the next thing we are going to do is make our stuffing for the apples. And I know it sounds very strange to stuff an apple with some cornbread, but trust me, this is delicious. So I've got about a half a stick of butter here, and that's going in my bowl. And in addition to some butter, we're going to put some garlic in there. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic that I'm just going to chop in my little garlic chopper. And so that will come right out and go in with our warm butter. And if I've got any garlic stuck in the top of this, that's fine. If you just take your knife and jiggle it around a little, then it comes right out. So that is all set. Now, it calls for raisins in this recipe, but we're not big raisin people, so I'm leaving it out. And if you'll note, there's a lot of recipes where I say, oh, the recipe calls for this, but we don't like it, so we're not putting it in. Absolutely, if you find a recipe that you like, but there's an ingredient in it that you maybe don't like, it's completely fine to leave it out and make the recipe your own. So now we also need a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and this is homemade brown sugar. And this is a 1/2 cup measurer, so I will just kind of eyeball here a 1/4 cup. And the combination of the butter and the garlic and the brown sugar with the cornbread and the apple is going to be delicious. And when you eat this, you just kind of cut it, you know, and eat it like you would just like a side dish, as if it was like a potato or something. It's just delicious. Now you need 1 to 2 large corn muffins crumbled. So I made cornbread the other day. We had some barbecue and we had some leftover cornbread, so I saved my cornbread just specifically for this. Rather than throw it out or, you know, have to go and buy or make more, I am just using what I have on hand. So I believe probably this amount of crumbled cornbread will be enough to stuff the 4 apples. So these other little pieces of cornbread I'll just put to the side. And then this we're going to mix up. So we're just combining that garlic, the brown sugar, the butter, and the cornbread. And the ingredients that you add to this cornbread should make it so that you can kind of mold it together and you can stuff the apples with it. So I will show you what that looks like in a second, but I'm just combining all of these, and I need to add some salt and pepper. Okay, So we'll mix that in. So now, if you wanted to, you could add raisins to this. Like I said, the recipe does call for raisins, but we're going to leave them out because we're not big on raisins. And now we're going to stuff our apples. Now, you can also put sage or thyme or something in this if you want to. Personally, like I said, I don't like sage, so I'm leaving it out. And I've got a good amount of thyme on the pork, so I'm going to leave the apples without the thyme. So now I'm going to basically eyeball like this into 4 portions so that I end up with even amounts. So that's for 2 apples, and then this here will be for 2 apples roughly. So now I know that I'm not going to end up like overstuffing 3 of them, and then when I get to the last one, then I just don't have any stuffing left. That would be a bummer. So I am going to just kind of put this stuffing in these apples, and so if you kind of shape it into like a, I don't know, a hot dog shape, and then stuff your apple, like push it in, and you want to really kind of pack that stuffing in. And then when you get to the point where the apple itself is full, then you basically take whatever stuffing you have left and just kind of create like a little dome on top of the apple. So we'll do that again. I'm taking my amount of stuffing that I think is good for 1 apple and kind of smushing it together. And like I said, the butter helps you to do that. And just getting this stuffed in there. And you just want as much of the apple stuffed as you can. And then you just press the remaining cornbread mixture on the top. So it kind of looks like the top of a muffin, basically. And you just press that on, and it should stick pretty well, and it should stay stuck while the apples bake. So I am going to finish stuffing these apples. I'll get them in the oven, and then I will show you our next side dish. So all 4 of our apples are stuffed and ready to go, and these are going to go in the oven just as they are for about a half hour, and we're going to let these cook, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. Our pork is in the oven roasting, our apples are baking, and so are our sweet potatoes. So now we're going to focus here on some parsnips. Parsnips are delicious. They're kind of like a weird white looking carrot. And when you roast them, they're just really sweet and delicious and so tasty. My daughter absolutely will not eat a carrot if you pay her. She picks them out of everything, but she will eat a huge pile of roasted parsnips. So we just bought a bag of them, and we thought it would be nice along with our pork and apples and sweet potatoes to have a little bit of parsnips. So I am just giving them a peel, and then we're going to cut them into relatively equal sized pieces and just roast them in the oven. Our ovens are going at 375 already, so we'll just keep them at 375. I'm going to season them with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and we're just going to let them cook like that. And so one more to peel here. This one is huge, but if you haven't tried parsnips yet, please do. They are absolutely delicious. I've never eaten them raw. I've only ever eaten them roasted. I don't even know if you could eat them raw, but I suggest roasting them. They're amazing. Okay, so I'm going to cut off the ends. Okay, and generally my husband says to cut them into like circles, so I guess I'm just going to do that. Even though I really want to cut them into like diagonals or something, I'm going to listen and do what he normally does, because normally he makes the parsnips and they're amazing. So the skinnier one I'm just going to leave as is because I don't want it to burn. Right, is that what you do? Yeah. He's giving me the thumbs up on that one, so I guess I'm doing it correctly. And I'm just trying to cut them an even thickness. But if it's really skinny, then I'm making it just a little bit thicker. There was sort of a brown yucky piece that I got off of there. So there. So circles. So we were making parsnip coins, I guess, is what we're doing. And then this one's kind of teeny tiny, so that's all right. She'll still be delicious. All right. And now, like I said, just a little olive oil, salt, and pepper. That's what you do, darling?
Or you can pan fry them.
Pan fry them in what?
Butter.
Okay.
Lots of
So
butter.
husband says you pan fry these in lots of butter, or you roast them in the oven with olive oil, salt, and pepper. So tonight, since everything is cooking in the oven and we're basically making a Sunday roast, we're going to roast them just with everything else. Keep it simple. Huh?
Amen.
Oh. And then some pink salt over the top. We'll just kind of give these a little mix around. Make sure they're coated with seasonings and olive oil. And now we're going to get these in the oven. How long?
About 20 to 25 minutes.
20 to 25 minutes or until tender. And we'll show you what these look like when they're done. Okay, it's time to make some gravy to go with our pork. And so this is 3 tablespoons of butter. Now, the recipe said to use drippings from the pan, but our pork tenderloin was very lean, and it had some fat on it, but there wasn't much in the way of drippings on the bottom of the pan. So I am using equal amounts of butter and flour. So 3 tablespoons of butter, 3 tablespoons of flour. I'm putting it in the bottom of this saucepan, and with my silicone coated whisk here, which I love. These things are great. They're heat resistant, and they are heat resistant up to a very high temperature, and also they are dishwasher safe, and they will not scratch your ceramic pans. So highly recommend these things. But this is butter, flour, and I'm just letting that cook a little bit in the pan so that we get rid of that raw flour scent. And once that raw flour scent goes away, we are adding a cup of chicken broth, and we are adding 16 ounces of apple cider. And then we're going to cook that down, and it's going to make a phenomenal gravy to go with our absolutely delicious roasted pork dinner. So we're just going to slowly stream in. This is our chicken stock. And we're just whisking as we're streaming it in so that we don't get lumps. And this is homemade, home-canned chicken stock. And it's going to make a wonderful gravy. We are going to season this with some salt and pepper. And we can add a little thyme to this. That'll match nicely with the flavors of the pork that we've cooked, because we put salt, pepper, and thyme on our pork. And so this is just the chicken stock with the flour and the butter. I'll add some salt and pepper. My chicken stock does not have any seasoning in it. It has flavor in it, but it doesn't have sodium in it. It doesn't have any salt in it. So I'm adding salt now. And because when I make my bone broth, I do not add any salt at the time that I make it, and I then season my dishes as I make them. And so then this is our apple cider, and I'm just going to slowly add this so that I make sure our gravy here does not curdle. And then we're going to bring this to a simmer, and we're going to let it reduce and thicken nicely. That combination of the butter and the flour is going to make a nice, smooth, tasty gravy to go on our pork. We're going to bring that to a simmer, and I will show you what it looks like when it starts to thicken. Our pork roast is done. It cooked for an hour and a half at 375, and it was perfectly at 145 degrees when we pulled it out. Then we just put it in, left it in the roasting pan, put a little foil over the top, and now we have like the perfect juicy pork. So I am going to serve myself a piece of that along with a sweet potato here. And I'm going to give myself some of these roasted parsnips. They are fabulous. We absolutely love them. And then these apples came out great. And so one of them fell over, of course, and it looks a mess, but that's fine. That's the one that I'm going to grab. And I'm just going to make sure that when I put this on my plate, that I grab some of this cornbread stuffing that was in there. And I will grab a spoon to do that. So this beautiful cornbread stuffing that was in the top of the apple now has all the flavors of that brown sugar and butter and salt and pepper and garlic and now the apple, and it's going to be delicious. Now in this pan behind me, I made an apple cider gravy to go on top of this pork, and so I am going to grab a spoon. And this is our apple cider gravy, and I'm just going to pour a little bit of this over the top of this pork so I can just show you what that looks like and then take a bite. I am going to let that gravy thicken up a little bit more, but it's almost more like a pain jus or like a gastrique kind of thing because of it being an apple cider based, and it looks and smells amazing. And so I'm going to take a bite here and let you know what I think of our pork roast and our apples. The sweet potatoes, I'm just going to add a little bit of butter and eat that as is. That pork is tender, it's juicy, and that cider gravy is so tasty. And then this baked apple, I haven't made these in a long time. I used to make this all the time years ago. And these little bits of baked apple with that cornbread stuffing, it's just so tasty and so good. And it's not too sweet because you've got some butter in there, you've got salt, pepper, kind of the flavoring of the thyme for the pork. You can kind of smell as you're eating it. And the garlic in there makes it a fabulous and different side dish. So I want to thank you for joining us today in the Pickup Kitchen. I'm so happy that you're here. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, please remember to like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Good night.